Hey guys, tonight we set sail on a voyage most of you wouldn't last through till lunch, because tonight we're climbing aboard a medieval ship. Not a sleek pirate schooner or a glorious flagship you've seen in movies, no. This is the real thing. Creaking timbers, leaking seams, and a scent that could slap your soul clean out of your body. You're waking up in a shadowy, low-ceilinged belly of a ship, pressed shoulder to shoulder with 40 other unwashed bodies, all stuffed into a space smaller than your average two-bedroom apartment. There's no mattress, just a wooden plank and a sack stuffed with straw that's probably seen more lice than a modern high school locker room. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far this bedtime crew reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your eyes crack open to the sway of the sea and an orchestra of coughs, snores, and flatulence. The air is thick. Imagine a combo of seawater, mildew, rotting wood, dried sweat, old fish, and a mysterious funk that no one dares identify. That's just the smell of morning on a medieval ship. You sit up, bump your head on the low beam above you, and immediately regret breathing through your nose. A rat scurries over your foot like it owns the place, and to be fair, it probably does. You're not alone down here. There's Hans, who's been violently seasick since day one. Miguel, who insists he's just coughing from the salt. And then there's the carpenter's apprentice, who hasn't said a word in 3 days and might actually be dead. No one's checked. Your clothes cling to your body, damp from sweat and sea mist. You haven't had a proper wash in, well, ever since you boarded. Baths aren't exactly part of the ship's schedule. You'd think being surrounded by water would help, but historians still argue whether sailors ever willingly cleaned themselves or if hygiene was considered suspicious behavior. You stagger upright, head still spinning from last night's shift, and try not to trip over the ropes, barrels, and buckets that litter the deck below. The ship groans like it's mildly annoyed at being alive, and every plank creaks with a wet complaint. You're on a cog, a popular cargo and war vessel in the 13th and 14th centuries. Clunky, boxy, and not designed for human comfort. Think of it as the minivan of medieval Europe, except it leaks and occasionally sinks. A bell clangs. Time to work. You climb the ladder onto the main deck, squinting against the morning light. The sun isn't out, but it's bright enough to make you sneeze. The sea stretches in every direction, gray and endless. The wind bites through your tunic, and the salty air stings your chapped lips. The captain is already shouting orders, mostly at you, since you're new and look like you might cry if pushed hard enough. The crew are hardened men with missing teeth, faded tattoos, and hands that could probably crush walnuts. You, on the other hand, are already wondering if faking a broken ankle is a viable strategy. There's no formal training here. You're expected to climb ropes, patch sails, mop decks, and not fall overboard, preferably all before lunch. Fall behind, and the bosun might hurl a bucket at your head. Miss a step on the rigging, and you're fish food. And don't even think about complaining. There's no HR on this floating coffin. Every surface is slick. Rain, seawater, and the occasional vomit from above all combine to make the deck a slippery hazard zone. You grip the ropes, knuckles white, trying to stay upright as the ship pitches and rolls with the waves. And speaking of waves, there's no smooth sailing. The ocean is a restless beast. Some days it's gentle, others it's actively trying to kill you. You watch as a massive swell lifts the ship up like a toy, then drops it with a crash that rattles your teeth. You stumble, catch yourself on a barrel, and mentally prepare to hate every second of this journey. Below deck, you're also expected to pull your weight, literally. Cargo must be shifted, ballast adjusted, and barrels of salted fish turned to prevent rot. Every task smells like old socks and heartbreak. You catch a glimpse of the cook. He's sharpening a knife and glaring at a suspiciously plump pigeon that landed on the mast. You pray it's not dinner. The food stores are locked tight, the crew is cranky, and your back already hurts from hauling wet sails in the rain. And yet, this is only the first hour of your day. It's worth noting, historians still argue whether medieval crews had any consistent routine or if chaos just reigned until land appeared. But one thing's for sure, discipline was enforced by fist, rope, or, if you really messed up, the cat o' nine tails. You try not to think about that one too hard. You finally get a 5-minute break and collapse near a coil of rope that smells like dead crab. One of the older sailors chuckles and tosses you a piece of hardtack, basically ship cracker made of flour, water, and sadness. You take a bite and chip a molar. Above you, the sky is darkening. Clouds loom. A storm is coming. And you've barely made it to mid-morning. You're starving. And not in the modern, ugh, I skipped lunch kind of way. This is full-body hunger, the kind that makes your knees wobble and your brain feel like it's floating slightly behind your skull. Breakfast is being served, which is a generous term, because what you're handed looks like the prize from a cursed scavenger hunt. Hardtack again. It's a square of flour and water baked until it achieves the density of medieval regret. You knock it against the railing. It makes a sound like a wood block. You try to soften it by dunking it in a cup of stale ale. But even then, it only yields slightly before putting up another fight. You bite. It crunches, but not like food, more like gravel. And then, you feel something wiggle. Congratulations. That biscuit has weevils. You've just met your first breakfast protein of the day. The crew barely notices. One sailor picks his biscuit clean like it's a lobster tail and shrugs. Extra meat, he mutters, and gulps it down. You suddenly miss your sad office oatmeal back home. You try not to gag, but even if you do, it's not like anyone has a breath mint. Hygiene here is more of a myth than a practice. People chew cloves if they can find them, or just live with the fact that everyone smells like old socks and onions. And if you thought breakfast was bad, just wait for lunch. But first, you're sent down to the hold to help fetch another barrel of salt pork. It's dark, damp, and the smell punches you in the nose like a jealous ex. You crack open a barrel and recoil. The pork is gray. Not just needs cooking gray. This is zombie meat. You ask if it's still edible. The reply? If the maggots float, we boil it. You suddenly appreciate the weevil biscuit. The ship lurches, and you slam into the barrel. A rat skitters across your boot like it's racing to tell its friends. There's a rumor among the crew that the rats know if a ship's going to sink. If they start fleeing, you should too. Historians still argue whether sailors actually believed this, but let's be honest. You'd believe anything right now if it meant getting off this cursed boat. Back on deck, it's lunch. Today's menu includes dried peas so old they should come with a museum plaque. You've boiled them into a paste, added stale ale, and called it stew. Technically edible. Emotionally devastating. You try to sit down and eat, but the wind's picked up. Your wooden bowl tips, half your meal spills, and before you can cry, a crewman scoops it off the deck and hands it back to you. 5-second rule, he says, deadpan. You thank him, then you eat it. Dignity left port 3 days ago. By late afternoon, your stomach is making sounds that might qualify as communication. You're not sure if it's hunger or if the pork has begun its revenge. The ship's surgeon, a man with 3 fingers and no visible eyebrows, offers you a sip of something that smells like vinegar and fire. You ask what it is. He says, medicine, then winks. Fun fact, garlic and wine were common medieval remedies. Sometimes they worked. Sometimes they just made your last moments smell like a sandwich shop. You decline. Later, you see the cook sharpening his cleaver again. He eyes a seagull perched on the mast. You silently pray for the bird's safety. There's also the ale. It's not the delicious tavern kind. It's weak, barely alcoholic, and tastes like someone strained it through a sock. But it's safer than water. Fresh water goes bad after a few days in barrels, especially if stored next to salted fish. You've already learned this the hard way. Let's just say, the toilet plank has seen a lot of you lately. And speaking of toilets, more on that horror show in the next section. For now, you're sipping rotten ale, chewing on salted sorrow, and trying not to make eye contact with the maggots in your dinner. You start to daydream about home, about hot coffee, toast, pancakes with syrup. You sigh. Then you hear someone shout, "Worm in the biscuit," and snap back to reality. Don't worry. That's dessert. Your stomach is now full, but not in a comforting way. It's more like you've swallowed a brick that's doing interpretive dance inside you. And then it hits. That dizzying, head-spinning lurch that makes your insides feel like they're being sloshed around in a soup pot. Welcome to seasickness. Or as medieval sailors called it, God's judgment for landlubbing weakness. You clutch your sides and wobble to the railing, where at least 5 other crewmates are already contributing yesterday's meals to the sea. One man hasn't stopped vomiting since sunrise. Another just leans over and mutters something about joining a monastery if he survives. It's unclear whether he's joking. The ship rolls sharply, and your legs go one way while your brain tries to go the other. Your balance gives out. You collapse into a coil of rope, your face pressed against scratchy hemp and the faint scent of fish guts. That's your new pillow now. Don't get too attached to comfort. Seasickness doesn't just fade, it clings to you like a guilty conscience. Medieval sailors had plenty of remedies, none of which worked. Some swore by garlic, others chewed on leather straps. One particularly superstitious deckhand rubs a dead eel on his chest, for balance. Historians still argue whether sailors truly believed in these strange fixes, or if it was just a desperate attempt to feel in control. Either way, you're not rubbing anything dead on your chest today. You try to stand again, just in time for the ship to buck like an angry mule. You fall sideways, slam into a barrel of salted fish, and swear you hear your bones sigh. The crew laughs. You're the entertainment now. One of them starts placing imaginary bets on how long you'll last. Your mouth goes dry, your vision swims, and the nausea creeps back up with all the subtlety of a marching band. You clutch the railing and try to focus on the horizon, but it's all just water. Water and clouds and the sickening tilt of wood under your feet. You attempt to breathe through it. In through the nose. Instantly regret that. The salty stink of sweat, bilge water, and fermented despair punches straight into your sinuses. And here's the real kicker. There's no escape, no little cabin to lie down in, no air conditioning, no Dramamine. If you're lucky, a sympathetic sailor might give you a slug of grog, but it's just watered-down rum and won't stop your body from staging a full-blown mutiny. Eventually, you crawl below deck, convinced lying down will help. It does not. The swaying down here is somehow worse. The darkness adds a whole new layer of misery. You can't tell if your stomach is flipping or if you're just dreaming of pancakes again. Somewhere near your hammock, you hear retching, followed by groaning, followed by a sound that might actually be sobbing. You're not alone. Even seasoned sailors fall victim. The sea doesn't care about experience. It just rolls and pitches and laughs while your inner ear tries to resign. To make it all worse, your duties don't pause just because your lunch has gone on vacation. You're expected to man the ropes, haul cargo, and scrub the deck, all while your equilibrium performs interpretive ballet. One poor soul tries to mop the deck between heaves. He pauses, pukes into the bucket, then keeps mopping. It's both impressive and horrifying. You give him a weak thumbs up before crawling toward fresh air. Then comes the test, climbing the rigging. The sail needs adjusting, and you, newbie that you are, have been volunteered to help. Up the mast you go, each step a shaky gamble. The ship shifts under you, and suddenly the sky is the sea, and the sea is everywhere. You cling to the rope like it's your mother's hand, cursing whoever invented sailing. Your knees are jelly, your stomach is plotting escape, and your dignity is long gone. The only thing keeping you from screaming is the realization that opening your mouth might trigger another round of bile confetti. Once you're back on the deck, someone hands you a cup. You take it with trembling hands, hoping for water. It's more ale. Always ale. By now, your head is pounding, your limbs are trembling, and your face is a solid shade of green. You slump near a hatch, wondering if it's possible to be seasick forever. Fun fact, Aristotle himself wrote about seasickness. He blamed it on motion and imbalance in bodily humors. He wasn't wrong, but he also didn't have to live inside a floating barf museum for weeks on end. You wonder how much longer this voyage will last. The answer is always too long. Night falls. You try to sleep, but your body is still lurching with phantom waves. Every creak of the hull sounds like it's planning your demise. Every groan of wood is a lullaby composed entirely of doom. You finally pass out with your face against a bundle of damp ropes. You dream of dry land, solid ground, bagels, anything that doesn't move. But dawn is only hours away, and the sea never sleeps. The moment you wake, you feel it. Again. That rolling nausea clinging to your insides like a moldy sponge. You groan, but the ship doesn't care. It lurches slightly to starboard, and you nearly fall off your wooden plank bed. Unfortunately, your body has more pressing needs. Not hunger, not thirst. The other one. You know, that one. So you rise with the grace of a wounded seal and begin the treacherous march to what the crew lovingly calls the seat of ease. Spoiler, there's nothing easy about it. Now, in case you were picturing a dark little outhouse at the back of the ship, think again. There is no bathroom. There's a plank. Yes, a literal wooden board extended out from the hull, with a hole cut in the middle, perched high above the crashing sea. It sways with every motion of the ship, and it's your only option. You wait your turn. Yes, there's a line, and try to avoid eye contact with the man emerging from his shift, looking mildly traumatized. He nods at you solemnly, like a soldier returning from battle. "Watch the wind," he mutters. That's all he says. You shuffle forward, step by cautious step, until it's your turn. You approach the edge of the deck where the plank juts out, looking more like a prank than a functional design. The wind howls, waves crash below like they're waiting to swallow mistakes, and you now understand true vulnerability. You inch onto the plank, clutching the rope rail with the desperate grip of someone who's not quite ready to meet Poseidon face to face. Every gust of wind threatens to turn you into a tragic sea story. You sit. The board creaks ominously. You begin to question every life choice that led you here. Now here's the historical kicker. Ships sometimes had more than one plank, but rarely any privacy. If you were lucky, a bit of sailcloth hung for modesty. But usually, everyone saw everything. And the risk of falling overboard? Extremely real. Some unlucky sailors were lost forever during their morning routine. Historians still debate whether crew members were tethered during these vulnerable moments. If not, Well, that's natural selection via high tide. You're finally done. Barely. You crawl back onto deck, shaken and humbled. One sailor claps you on the back. Didn't fall in? Good man. You don't respond. You just stare into the distance, questioning existence. The rest of the day doesn't offer much comfort. With no plumbing, hygiene on board is, how do we say this, non-existent. You're sweaty, you're sticky. And now that you've braved the seat of ease, you've joined the elite club of never truly clean again. Your hands, covered in rope burn and tar. Your feet, wet since day one. Your socks, biological weapons. You've tried to wash your shirt in a bucket, but the salt made it stiffer than the ship's hull. At some point, someone mentions a bath. You perk up until you realize it means jumping overboard with a rope tied around your waist. That's the medieval version of a spa day. Tempting, but no. Instead, you settle for splashing your face with seawater. It stings. Your skin feels like it's aging in reverse. Not like a baby, like driftwood. Suddenly, a commotion breaks out near the bow. One of the barrels has tipped and rolled, its contents spilling across the deck. You rush to help, slipping slightly in something unidentifiable. You really hope it's just fish oil. While cleaning up, your hand brushes something soft. You recoil, heart pounding, only to realize it's someone's discarded undergarment. You wash your hand with brine, soap being a mythical luxury aboard this ship. Speaking of which, medieval sailors sometimes carried soap made from animal fat and ash, but it was rare and hoarded. Bathing was considered risky because cold, wet bodies supposedly led to deadly humors. You're starting to agree. Being clean here feels like a liability. You overhear two sailors arguing about who gets to clean the latrine next. It's not a punishment. It's just a fact of life. You pretend not to hear your name volunteered. Later, you'll learn it was your turn. As the sun sinks, the deck smells more pungent than usual. A mix of body odor, drying fish, and the toilet plank's legacy. The wind helps, a little, but also blows the stink directly into your face more often than not. You give up. You find a spot to sit, careful not to rest against anything oozing. The stars come out, beautiful, distant, unaware of your suffering. Somewhere, someone sings. A sea shanty, off-key but heartfelt. It lifts morale for a moment. Then someone farts loudly, and the magic dies. You close your eyes and pray for morning, or for a volcanic island to appear and rescue you. Either works. The moment you wake, you feel it. Again. That rolling nausea clinging to your insides like a moldy sponge. You groan, but the ship doesn't care. It lurches slightly to starboard, and you nearly fall off your wooden plank bed. Unfortunately, your body has more pressing needs. Not hunger, not thirst. The other one. You know, that one. So you rise with the grace of a wounded seal and begin the treacherous march to what the crew lovingly calls the seat of ease. Spoiler, there's nothing easy about it. Now, in case you were picturing a dark little outhouse at the back of the ship, think again. There is no bathroom. There's a plank. Yes, a literal wooden board extended out from the hull, with a hole cut in the middle, perched high above the crashing sea. It sways with every motion of the ship, and it's your only option. You wait your turn. Yes, there's a line. And try to avoid eye contact with the man emerging from his shift, looking mildly traumatized. He nods at you solemnly, like a soldier returning from battle. Watch the wind, he mutters. That's all he says. You shuffle forward, step by cautious step, until it's your turn. You approach the edge of the deck where the plank juts out, looking more like a prank than a functional design. The wind howls, Waves crash below like they're waiting to swallow mistakes, and you now understand true vulnerability. You inch onto the plank, clutching the rope rail with the desperate grip of someone who's not quite ready to meet Poseidon face to face. Every gust of wind threatens to turn you into a tragic sea story. You sit. The board creaks ominously. You begin to question every life choice that led you here. Now here's the historical kicker. Ships sometimes had more than one plank, but rarely any privacy. If you were lucky, a bit of sailcloth hung for modesty. But usually, everyone saw everything. And the risk of falling overboard? Extremely real. Some unlucky sailors were lost forever during their morning routine. Historians still debate whether crew members were tethered during these vulnerable moments. If not, well, that's natural selection via high tide. You're finally done. Barely. You crawl back onto deck, shaken and humbled. One sailor claps you on the back. Didn't fall in? Good man. You don't respond. You just stare into the distance, questioning existence. The rest of the day doesn't offer much comfort. With no plumbing, hygiene on board is, how do we say this, non-existent. You're sweaty, you're sticky. And now that you've braved the seat of ease, you've joined the elite club of never truly clean again. Your hands, covered in rope burn and tar. Your feet, wet since day one. Your socks, biological weapons. You've tried to wash your shirt in a bucket, but the salt made it stiffer than the ship's hull. At some point, someone mentions a bath. You perk up until you realize it means jumping overboard with a rope tied around your waist. That's the medieval version of a spa day. Tempting, but no. Instead, you settle for splashing your face with seawater. It stings. Your skin feels like it's aging in reverse. Not like a baby, like driftwood. Suddenly, a commotion breaks out near the bow. One of the barrels has tipped and rolled, its contents spilling across the deck. You rush to help, slipping slightly in something unidentifiable. You really hope it's just fish oil. While cleaning up, your hand brushes something soft. You recoil, heart pounding, only to realize it's someone's discarded undergarment. You wash your hand with brine, soap being a mythical luxury aboard this ship. Speaking of which, medieval sailors sometimes carried soap made from animal fat and ash, but it was rare and hoarded. Bathing was considered risky because cold, wet bodies supposedly led to deadly humors. You're starting to agree. Being clean here feels like a liability. You overhear two sailors arguing about who gets to clean the latrine next. It's not a punishment. It's just a fact of life. You pretend not to hear your name volunteered. Later, you'll learn it was your turn. As the sun sinks, the deck smells more pungent than usual. A mix of body odor, drying fish, and the toilet plank's legacy. The wind helps, a little, but also blows the stink directly into your face more often than not. You give up. You find a spot to sit, careful not to rest against anything oozing. The stars come out, beautiful, distant, unaware of your suffering. Somewhere, someone sings. A sea shanty, off-key but heartfelt. It lifts morale for a moment. Then someone farts loudly, and the magic dies. You close your eyes and pray for morning, or for a volcanic island to appear and rescue you. Either works. Morning again. Your back aches, your knees pop, and your nose. Well, it's adapted. You barely register the smell anymore, which is somehow more alarming than comforting. The scent has won. Today, the captain makes an appearance. You expected a noble-looking man with a grand beard and a booming voice. Instead, you get someone who looks like they were forged from sea salt and resentment. The captain is short, scowling, and wears a coat that was probably blue once, but is now closer to barnacle. He surveys the deck with the cold precision of someone constantly considering whether tossing someone overboard would really be that big a deal. And guess what? He hates you. It's not personal. It's just tradition. New crew members are automatically suspicious. You're unproven, possibly lazy, maybe cursed. It's hard to tell. And you ask questions. That's the worst part. Medieval captains don't like questions, especially not ones like, "Where are we going?" Or, "Should that be leaking?" You're assigned the worst jobs: cleaning the bilge, scrubbing vomit from the deck, or hauling barrels up from the hold, one by one. Not because they're essential, but because someone needs to learn humility. And apparently today, that someone is you. You try to bond with the other crew members, but it's complicated. Ship hierarchy is brutal. You've got the captain at the top, followed by the officers, if there are any, then the boatswain, then the carpenter, the cook, and finally the common sailors, and then you. The green hand. The guy who's still learning which rope does what and which bucket is not for drinking. One sailor, whose name you think is Willem but might be Oi you, tells you to always keep your eyes down and your mouth shut. Speak only if the ship's on fire or the captain falls overboard, he advises. Actually, maybe not even then. Medieval crews operated under strict discipline. Some captains ruled with fear, others with respect, but most relied on harsh punishment. Stealing? You're flogged. Disobedience? Flogged harder. Complaining? Flogged with feeling. Historians still debate whether the punishments were standardized or entirely dependent on the captain's mood swings. Spoiler: it was usually the mood swings. And if the captain really didn't like you, you might be tied to the mast for a day. No food, no water, just sunburn, bird droppings, and reflection. A salty timeout, if you will. You try to stay out of the captain's path. You fail. While hauling ropes, you trip and accidentally splash seawater near his boots. They were already soaked, but now they're emotionally wet. He glares at you like you insulted his mother. Later, you're called to help secure the mizzen. You don't know what that means. You nod anyway. You're handed a rope and told, "Don't mess this up." No pressure. You try. You really do. But somehow you end up tying a knot so wrong, it invents a new shape. The sail doesn't catch wind properly. The ship lurches. The captain curses in 5 languages, 2 of which you're pretty sure are made up. You brace for impact. Surprisingly, you're not flogged, just demoted from idiot to stay out of the way. You accept your new rank with pride. Later that day, there's a meeting near the bow. A heated argument over rations. A few sailors are claiming someone's been stealing extra ale. Fingers are pointed. Voices rise. Then someone accuses the cook. The cook, a wiry man with suspiciously sharp knives, doesn't deny it, just stares and starts chopping an onion very aggressively. You step back. Far back. This is where you realize everyone kind of hates everyone. Long voyages, bad food, no privacy. It doesn't exactly breed camaraderie. Tensions rise faster than the tide. The tiniest disagreement can turn into a brawl. And guess who usually gets blamed when tempers flare? That's right. The new guy. One sailor accuses you of looking sneaky. You blink. "I have resting sick face," you try to explain. No one laughs. To avoid drama, you retreat to the rigging. Up high, near the sails, where no one bothers you and the seagulls are your only enemies. They're not friendly. You sit there for a while, letting the wind slap your face into consciousness. You can see for miles, ocean in every direction. No land, no escape, just a vast watery prison. But for a moment, it's peaceful. Then the captain yells your name again. You sigh and climb down. Your break is over. Your duties await. and the captain still hates you. Rain. Cold, slanting, vindictive rain. It started around midnight and hasn't stopped since. The sky is a bruised gray. The wind screams in your ears, and every inch of you is soaked. Your boots squelch with every step, and your clothes stick to you like cold pancake batter. The deck tilts violently as waves slam the hull, and you swear the ocean is actively trying to throw you off the ship. The crew moves quickly, shouting orders, tightening ropes, and reefing sails. You try to blend in, head down, eyes alert, but you already know what's coming. The boatswain barks your name and jabs a thumb toward the rigging. Yep, it's your turn. The sails have started to tear in the storm. Ropes are snapping. One sail flaps violently in the wind like a demon's bedsheet. You are now the volunteer to fix it. You swallow your fear and approach the mast. Rain blinds you. The rope ladder is slick as eels, and the wood creaks under your weight. 1 foot, then the next. Higher, higher still. Each gust of wind slams into you like a drunk uncle trying to hug. Your fingers are numb, but you cling to the rigging with the desperation of a man clinging to the last shred of his dignity. 40 feet up, you pause. Below you, the ship tosses and rolls like a toy. The ocean beyond is a boiling stew of black water and white foam. You feel small. Really small. One slip and it's over. No life jacket. No rescue. The crew might throw a rope out of politeness, but no one expects you to return. Falling from this height is a one-way trip to missing presumed fish food. You reach the yardarm. The canvas is flapping so violently, you're surprised it hasn't taken flight. You anchor yourself with one leg over the beam and fumble with the ropes. It's like trying to tie your shoelaces in a hurricane while being slapped repeatedly by a wet curtain. The sail finally gives way with a loud tear. You shout, but your voice is instantly stolen by the wind. You brace yourself and reach for the new rope, just as a wave crashes against the hull below, sending a fine spray skyward. You're drenched again, because apparently once wasn't enough. Eventually, you manage to lash the sail tight. Your muscles are shaking. Your arms feel like spaghetti, and your heart is threatening to resign. You climb back down, legs trembling with every rung. When you reach the deck, the crew gives you a nod. Not praise, just acknowledgement. Like, you didn't die. Good. That's the medieval equivalent of Employee of the Month. But there's no time to rest. The storm is growing fiercer. One of the side rails has broken loose. You're handed a hammer, a chunk of wood, and told to make it better. You're not a carpenter, but that's adorable because no one cares. You nail it shut, praying the next wave doesn't tear it off again. The wind shrieks louder. Thunder rolls across the sky like bowling balls dropped from heaven. Lightning splits the dark, illuminating the ship in stark flashes. For a brief second, you see the fear in everyone's faces, even the captain's. Here's a fun fact. Medieval sailors were deeply superstitious. Lightning at sea was sometimes blamed on angered gods, sinful crewmates, or even women hiding on board, which, yes, was believed to curse the voyage. Historians still argue whether these beliefs were widely held or just used as convenient scapegoats when things went wrong. As if on cue, someone starts muttering prayers. Another sailor tosses a coin overboard as an offering. You clutch the nearest mast and whisper a few promises you probably won't keep. The storm peaks. The ship shudders. The mainmast groans under the pressure. Ropes strain and snap with a sound like gunshots. One man is nearly thrown overboard but is caught just in time. Then, just as quickly as it arrived, the storm begins to fade. The rain slows. The wind settles. The ocean calms to a slow churn, like it's decided to take a nap after a good tantrum. You're left with soaked clothes, blistered hands, and a new understanding of fear. The deck is littered with debris. Broken barrels, shredded rope, a seagull feather stuck to someone's forehead. Cleanup begins immediately. No rest. No great job surviving. Just mop up the seawater, repair what you can, and hope the next storm takes its time. Your fingers are raw, your arms sore, and your entire body shivering. You curl up near a barrel, your teeth chattering. Someone hands you a cup of grog. It's warmish. You drink it in one gulp. Later, while patching a hole in the side rail, you hear two sailors arguing over whose fault the storm was. One blames the captain. Another says it's the new moon. Someone else swears he saw a ghost in the crow's nest. You don't argue. You're just glad to be alive. And secretly, you suspect the ocean is trying to kill you. You've been assigned night watch. This is not an honor. It's a punishment with a fancy name. While the rest of the crew wraps themselves in damp blankets, snoring and groaning in their soggy hammocks, you get to stand, alone, on the deck, in the pitch dark, eyes peeled for anything that moves, or glows, or screams. There's no lantern, just the moon, if you're lucky. Tonight, you're not. The clouds have eaten it. You grip the railing and peer into the abyss. There's only the creak of the ship, the slosh of waves, and the occasional unsettling groan from the hull. You blink. Was that a shadow moving across the water? Or just your imagination performing shadow puppets with your fear? The wind bites. Your clothes, still soaked from the storm, cling to you like freezing seaweed. You shiver so violently, you feel like your teeth are trying to Morse code an SOS. You wish you could hum to keep calm, but even your own voice feels too loud. Night watch demands silence. You're listening for pirates. Yes, pirates. They're real, and they're very much a medieval problem, especially near trade routes or coastlines. They didn't wear eyeliner or say "R," but they did sneak up in the dark and board ships with knives between their teeth. At least, that's what the older sailors say. Historians still debate just how common these raids were, but the fear is enough to keep everyone twitchy after sunset. You scan the waves for shadows. Any sign of another ship or a small boat approaching quietly. Every creak behind you could be a blade being drawn. Every splash might be a swimmer. You feel ridiculous. You also don't blink for 20 minutes. Then come the noises. A distant clank of metal. Probably the anchor chain, you tell yourself. But then you hear whispers. Or the wind pretending to be whispers. You spin around. Nothing. Just the dim silhouette of the mast, the ghostly shimmer of wet wood. Then there's the thud. A solid, deliberate thud. You freeze. You wait. Nothing follows. You slowly exhale, realizing you've been holding your breath so long your brain is considering a work stoppage. Turns out it was the cook dropping a pan below deck. He's looking for rats again. You don't know whether to laugh or cry. So you do neither. You just go back to staring into the void. Another fact about medieval sailing life. Many sailors believed in sea monsters. Gigantic serpents, krakens, ghost ships. And if you squint just right into the inky waves below, you start to understand why. The sea at night doesn't feel like water. It feels like another world, one that doesn't want you here. You lean over the edge and peer down. The reflection of your own face stares back at you, hollow-eyed and pale. You flinch, nearly losing your balance. Steady now. The ship groans. It always groans. You've been told that's normal, that it's the wood expanding, the nails settling, the ropes tightening. But there's something about hearing a vessel complain beneath you that keeps your heart rate permanently elevated. Far off, you spot something glowing faintly below the surface. You blink, unsure. Bioluminescent plankton, maybe? It's beautiful. Also creepy. You feel like it's watching you back. You check the rigging. all secure. You check the sail lines, all tied. You check your pulse, still panic adjacent. Halfway through your watch, another sailor joins you for rotation. His name is Peter, and he's missing most of his left eyebrow. He nods, leans against the mast, and says nothing for the first 10 minutes. Then, casually, he says, "One time I saw a ghost walk across the water." You smile politely. He's dead serious. "She looked right at me," he says. "Had barnacles growing from her eyes. Didn't blink once." You don't respond. Vanished into the mist. Just like that. He nods again, as if that settles it. You decide not to ask follow-up questions. The rest of your shift passes slowly. Time stretches, drips, and folds in on itself. You can hear the waves. You can feel the cold. You can almost hear your thoughts screaming for coffee. Eventually, dawn creeps in like a guilty cat. The sky shifts from black to bruised blue. The silhouettes of the sails become visible again. And slowly, the other crew members begin to stir. Your night watch is over. You didn't die. You didn't get attacked. You didn't fall asleep and fall overboard. Success. As you stumble toward your hammock, another sailor claps you on the back and says, "Not bad. You didn't scream once." You pause. "Wait, people scream?" He grins. "First week, everyone does. You wake up itching. Not the maybe I brushed against something kind of itching. Number this is the full body, deep in your pores. Something is definitely crawling on me. Itch. You scratch your arm, then your leg, then your neck. You sit up, panicked, and that's when you see it. A rat on your blanket, grooming itself like it pays rent. You freeze. It stares at you with beady indifference, then scampers off, leaving a trail of mystery crumbs and an existential crisis. You examine your bedding, which, to be clear, is just a moldy piece of cloth over a wooden plank, and discover tiny chew marks in one corner, possibly from the rat, possibly from boredom. You shake out your blanket and your soul, but the itching persists. And now that you're fully awake, so does the smell. You're marinating in your own sweat, salt, and centuries of filth. Every surface is damp. Every fiber of your clothing feels like it's made of wet dog hair. Medieval sailors rarely changed clothes. You're wearing the same shirt and trousers you boarded in. Washing them. With what? The seawater that gave you a rash last week? Soap is rare. Clean water is rationed. And so, you fester. And yet hygiene isn't your biggest issue today. No. Today you discover you have bunkmates, microscopic and otherwise. You run into a sailor named Brant, who hands you a pinch of powder. "Lice," he says, scratching his own scalp. "Sprinkle this in your hair." Might help. Might not. Historians still debate how widespread lice treatments were aboard medieval ships. Some crews rubbed vinegar into their scalps. Others just shaved their heads. You're beginning to understand why. You follow his advice and dust your hair. It smells like ground-up sadness. You instantly feel 10% less itchy and 90% more hopeless. Later, you inspect your bedding again. There are droppings, tiny, pellet-shaped. You don't ask. You don't want to know. Instead, you climb onto the deck for fresh air, which, as always, smells like fish and regrets. The sun is out, which means it's drying day. Everyone lays out their blankets and clothes to soak up the weak sunshine. The sails flap lazily. The rigging creaks. And 25 shirts with identical stains wave like surrender flags. Someone tries to brush his tunic clean with a rock. Another whacks his boots against the mast to knock the worms out. You watch in quiet horror. You sit, pick at a splinter in your palm, and try not to think about fleas. Then a shout from the hold. Roaches! Several sailors groan in unison. You hear the scramble of boots, a bucket being thrown, and someone yelling, "Get the big one!" You don't ask. Instead, you volunteer to help repair the water barrels, just to avoid going back down there. The barrels, by the way, are lined with tar to prevent leaks. Your hands are soon black and sticky. You use a rag to clean them, which only spreads the tar. You look like you just lost a fight with an oil painting. And then, of course, there's the mold. Everything down below is speckled with it. The wood, the ropes, even some of the food. At one point, you bite into a piece of hardtack and discover a blue-green patch that is definitely not part of the original recipe. You show it to the cook. He shrugs. "Penicillin," he says, completely misunderstanding science by about 6 centuries. It's hard to tell what's worse, your living conditions or how numb you're becoming to them. Even the rats seem bolder now. One skitters across the deck in broad daylight. No one flinches. In fact, one sailor casually tosses it a breadcrumb. "His name's Jacques," he says. "He only bites if you snore." You're unsure if that's a joke. At night, the real fun begins. The hold becomes a symphony of scratching, squeaking, and involuntary scratching. You shift on your plank, trying to find a dry spot. There isn't one. You wrap yourself tighter in your infested blanket and stare at the ceiling. A spider lowers itself down near your face. You watch each other in tense silence. Later, you feel something scamper across your leg. You pray it's your imagination. It is not. You sit up, eyes wild, and consider sleeping on deck instead. But it's cold, damp, and someone up there snores like a dying walrus. You stay. You itch. And then you drift off, because eventually, even misery needs a nap. You wake to shouting. It's still dark, but the voices are sharp, urgent, slicing through the usual background hum of creaks and coughs. You sit up, disoriented, blanket tangled around your legs, and try to make out the chaos. There's stomping on the deck above, the kind of stomping that only happens when someone's about to throw a punch or a person. You climb the ladder slowly, cautiously, not eager to become collateral damage. Up on deck, a circle has formed. 2 sailors are nose to nose, screaming obscenities in 5 dialects, one of which sounds suspiciously made up. The tension is thick, and the crew watches like it's the evening's entertainment. You hear the word theft, then cheating, then you tried to poison me, which seems like quite a leap in escalation. You edge closer to someone you vaguely trust, Peter, the ghost-seeing guy, and ask what's going on. "Mutiny," he says casually. "Or a warm-up." Great. Turns out, someone accused someone else of taking extra ale. Again, someone else claimed the cook is shorting rations. Then a third person accused the captain of plotting to sell the entire crew into slavery. That last part seems unlikely, but paranoia is the ship's main pastime after dinner. And here's the fun historical twist. Mutinies weren't that rare. Long voyages, starvation, disease, and salt-induced madness all made for short tempers and long grudges. Historians still argue whether mutiny was more common on merchant ships, exploratory vessels, or military ones. But what's clear is this. When you're months from land, floating on splinters, all rules are negotiable. Back in the shouting circle, the captain finally arrives. He says nothing at first, just stands, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Then very calmly, he tells the 2 men arguing that if they don't shut up, they'll be tied to opposite sides of the mast and left there until they forget what they were mad about. A few laughs ripple through the crew. The threat is half joke, half not. One man storms off. The other kicks a bucket. The tension deflates. For now. But it lingers. Like a bad smell. Or the mold on your only pair of socks. You think back to that moment in the hold, just a week ago, when someone muttered about how the captain doesn't even know where we're going. You laughed then. Now, you're not so sure. Later that day, the cook announces dinner is ready. That word has lost all meaning. Tonight, it's more hardtack, salted something, and a broth that might just be hot seawater with ambition. The crew eats in silence. No one wants to trigger another argument. Even the rats seem tense. You sit with Brant and a few of the younger sailors, trying to keep things light. Someone jokes about jumping ship and swimming home. Someone else jokes about eating Jacques the rat. Then the carpenter, a grim man with 3 fingers and a tattoo of a fish fighting a sword, says, "We should have thrown the captain overboard during the storm." No one laughs. You shift in your seat, and now you're wondering, are they serious? Is this mutiny in slow motion? That night, you lie awake listening to whispers, to footsteps, to the captain pacing above deck. You wonder how far loyalty goes when you're starving, wet, and hallucinating seagulls with human faces. Okay, that last one might have been the bad pork. You consider sneaking off the ship and making a break for it. Then remember, you're in the middle of the ocean. So instead, you roll over, hug your infested blanket, and try not to think about what happens if the next fight ends with someone missing, or floating, or both. Thirst. A simple hollow ache at first. But now it's all consuming. Your lips are cracked, your tongue feels like burlap, and every swallow is a scratchy reminder that you haven't had real water in days. The ship's freshwater barrels have gone sour again. You learned this the hard way after taking a mouthful yesterday and immediately gagging on what tasted like wet socks boiled in despair. It's not your fault. Storing water in wooden casks under fluctuating temperatures is basically an invitation to microbial chaos. The barrels were once lined with pitch to help preserve them, but even that only buys you time. You bring a cup to the cook, asking if there's any unspoiled water. He laughs. There's ale. You force a smile. It's weak, flat, and vaguely acidic, but it's the only drinkable liquid aboard. Medieval sailors drank beer or ale as their main fluid source, not because they wanted to be drunk, though some were, but because fermentation killed enough bacteria to make it less likely to kill you. Historians still argue how much alcohol these brews actually had, but based on how many sailors fell off decks mid-song, it wasn't none. You take a swig. Warm. Sour. Your stomach protests, but your throat is grateful. Somewhere nearby, a man is wringing out a wet cloth over his mouth. You pretend not to notice. Desperation makes people creative and also deeply unhygienic. Later, a crewmate named Arnie tells you about drinking brine. You assume he's joking. He's not. You see, some sailors, too far gone with thirst, would start sipping seawater. Just a bit. Just to feel the wetness. It never ends well. Saltwater accelerates dehydration, fries your kidneys, and turns your brain into overcooked lentils. Arnie says one guy drank half a bucket once, stripped naked, and tried to challenge the moon to a duel. You nod politely and take another sip of sad ale. By midday, the sun is brutal. Clouds offer no shade, and the deck feels like a frying pan that someone forgot on high. The wood burns your feet through your shoes. You see sailors cracking eggs on metal hinges for fun, not to eat, just to watch them sizzle. It's not very fun. Someone faints near the mizzenmast. The crew doesn't panic. They just carry him to the shade and pour grog over his head. Standard procedure. You try to stay out of the sun, ducking under the awning that smells like wet goat. Your skin is already raw from salt, wind, and the occasional slap from a loose rope. Now it's turning pink in a way that screams, you're about to learn what medieval sunburn treatment looks like. Spoiler. It involves no aloe and a lot of bad decisions. Speaking of treatments, another sailor suggests putting fish guts on your skin to cool the fire. You decline. He shrugs and does it himself. You take a mental step away. By evening, your thirst is sharper. You hear your pulse in your ears. You fantasize about fountains, lakes, melting ice cubes. Someone suggests collecting rainwater with your hat. You all laugh. It hasn't rained in days. One guy tries anyway. He stands there in the middle of the deck for 20 minutes like a hopeful idiot until the cook throws a crust of bread at him. Later, a whisper spreads. One of the barrels might still be clean. You rush to the hold with a few others, heart pounding, only to find the barrel already empty. A lone rat scurries out from behind it, licking its whiskers. You make eye contact. He looks smug. You consider crying. You don't have the moisture to spare. At dinner, the cook offers a hydration stew. It's mostly fish bones and salt water. You politely sip. Your kidneys write a formal complaint. Desperate now, you dip a cloth into seawater, suck on it, then immediately regret it. Your mouth goes numb. Your tongue tingles. Your brain pulses with regret. Some sailors chew on leather straps. You try it. It helps. A little. You ask the carpenter if there's any trick to making seawater drinkable. He says, sure, evaporate it, catch the steam, condense it. Then he laughs. You got a still on you, lad? You don't. You do, however, have a deepening respect for modern plumbing. Finally, night falls. Cooler air. Still no water, but at least you're not baking anymore. You crawl into your hammock, mouth dry, head throbbing, body sticky with sweat and salt. You dream of waterfalls. And then, halfway through the night, you wake up licking your own elbow. It's going to be a long voyage. Your gums are bleeding. At first, you think you bit your tongue in your sleep. But then you touch your mouth, feel the puffiness along your lower gum line, and taste that unmistakable iron tang. You sit up slowly, heart thudding. You reach for your water flask, empty of course, and swallow dryly. Your gums feel like jelly. Welcome to scurvy. It doesn't announce itself all at once. It creeps in, a bruise that takes too long to fade, legs that ache even after rest, small cuts that won't heal. And now, inflamed gums that make chewing feel like a medieval punishment. Which, ironically, it kind of is. You try to eat breakfast, hardtack and pickled something, but the moment you bite down, a molar throbs so hard it brings tears to your eyes. You chew on the opposite side, like someone politely trying to survive. You mention the pain to a nearby sailor. He nods knowingly and lifts his shirt to show you his ribs, each one sharply outlined, his skin spotted with dark splotches. Scurvy, he says flatly. You're not surprised. You've heard the whispers. Sailors losing teeth, gums turning black, legs swelling until boots won't fit. It's all very glamorous. The root cause? A complete and utter lack of vitamin C. Fresh fruits and vegetables, those delightful things landfolk enjoy, are practically non-existent on a medieval ship. Even when they were loaded, they didn't last. Lemons rot, cabbages mold, carrots liquefy, and sailors, they just wither. Fun fact, historians still argue when the connection between citrus and scurvy was first truly understood. Some ancient cultures made vague links. The British Navy would later become famous for issuing daily lime rations, hence the term limey. But you're still centuries too early for that life-saving innovation. So what are your options? Some sailors suck on old lemon rinds, if they're lucky enough to have them. Others gnaw on spruce tips. One guy even claims the mold on hardtack is helpful. You try that. It's not. It just tastes like regret. The cook offers you something special, a broth made from boiled rat bones and seaweed. Good for the blood, he says. You drink it because you're too tired to argue. It's salty, slimy, and maybe 1% vegetable adjacent. That'll have to do. By midday, you feel worse. Your muscles ache. Your skin is yellowing slightly. You notice a fresh bruise on your arm from bumping into a crate yesterday, and it's growing. You're also constantly exhausted, the kind of tired that no nap can cure. Even standing feels like a dare. You find a spot on deck in the shade, trying to breathe through the nausea. Your mouth tastes foul, like something's rotting, and you're pretty sure that something is you. The ship's surgeon checks on you. He pokes your gum with a metal tool. You yelp. He grunts. Classic case, he mutters. You ask what the treatment is. He shrugs. Patience. Prayer. And if it gets worse, removal. Removal? You ask, horrified. Teeth, he says, matter-of-factly. You back away slowly. Later, you see another sailor having a tooth yanked out by the carpenter. There's no anesthesia, just rum and yelling. The extracted tooth hits the deck with a tiny clink. Everyone applauds. You throw up a little in your mouth. You're starting to see why sailors didn't live long. That night, someone collapses near the mainmast. They've stopped eating altogether. Their legs are swollen, purple, and stiff. The crew lays them gently in the shade and gives them a cloth to bite. You ask Peter if that's normal. For scurvy? Yep. You'll see more. You wonder if you'll be one of them. Still, life goes on. The sails need adjusting. The deck needs scrubbing. The ropes need oiling. No one gets to pause for bleeding gums. You force yourself to your feet and hobble toward the rigging. Every step a stabbing reminder that your joints are staging a rebellion. As you work, you fantasize about oranges. Not metaphorically, you literally see them in your mind. Plump, juicy, glowing with that golden light only desperate brains can invent. You swear you can smell them. You lick your lips and taste iron. Another sailor mentions lemons, and someone else nearly weeps. By now the crew looks like an open-air hospital. Sunken eyes, shuffling feet, coughs that echo, and gums. So many gums. Red, purple, angry gums. And the rats? Thriving. You're starting to take it personally. At dinner, someone hands you a strip of salted meat. You gnaw at it. One of your back teeth gives up and falls out. You don't say anything. You just put it in your pocket like a weird, horrifying souvenir. You think to yourself, this can't get worse. But tomorrow's forecast includes infection. Possibly fever. Definitely despair. Sweet dreams. It starts as a tiny nick. Barely more than a paper cut, really. Just a shallow scrape across your palm from a splintered rope. You suck the sting reflexively and wrap it in the least filthy scrap of cloth you can find. Nothing to worry about. By nightfall, it's red and tender. By the next morning, it's angry, swollen, hot. You unwrap the cloth and immediately regret it. The cut is now puffy, pulsing slightly, with a yellow halo forming around the edges. You poke it once, gently, and your entire arm sends back a message. Never do that again. You show it to the ship's surgeon. He nods solemnly and opens his toolkit, which resembles something between a butcher's drawer and a horror film prop table. You see a hook, something vaguely scissor-shaped, and, of course, a rusty knife that still has someone else's dried blood on it. He tells you it's minor. You'll just need it cleaned. He then pours brine on it. You scream into your sleeve as the salt sears into your raw skin. Your eyes water. Your legs shake. The surgeon hums softly, like he's seasoning stew. Once done, he wraps it in fresh cloth and tells you to keep an eye on it. Great. Now you have homework. Here's the ugly truth about minor wounds on a medieval ship. They don't stay minor. There's no antiseptic, no antibiotics, no sterile bandages. The best you can hope for is a cleanish rag and a splash of alcohol strong enough to double as rocket fuel. Infection is a constant threat. Even something as small as a splinter can go septic if you're unlucky. Historians still debate how common amputations actually were during long voyages. Some argue it was rare due to limited tools. Others say it was the go-to solution once rot set in. You hope not to find out firsthand. By midday, your hand throbs in rhythm with your heartbeat. You can't grip a rope. You can't lift a bucket. You try to hide it. If you can't work, you're dead weight. Peter notices and offers you some advice. Soak it in rum, then drink the rest. You try it. It doesn't help. But at least you're slightly more cheerful as your hand continues to swell. Later, while scrubbing the deck one-handed, you see another sailor, Nico, being carried up from the hold. His leg is wrapped in a blood-soaked cloth. He cut it on a jagged nail yesterday. Now it's purple from knee to ankle. The surgeon looks grim. The captain gives a tight nod. And just like that, Nico disappears behind the mast. You hear muffled yelling. Then nothing. You don't see Nico again that night. The rumor is they took his leg. You don't ask. You're too busy wondering if your own finger is about to bid you farewell. That evening, your fever starts. A slow burn at first, like someone turned your internal temperature up a few degrees. You sweat even though it's cold. Your body aches. Your vision fuzzes at the edges. You lie in your hammock and stare at the planks above, willing yourself not to shake. Other voices drift nearby. One man coughing blood, another muttering nonsense in his sleep. You think you hear someone sobbing softly. Could be the wind. Could be you. You dream of clean hospitals, Band-Aids, hand sanitizer, anything sterile. Then you dream of your hand turning black and falling off. You wake with a start. The fever's worse. Your thoughts feel like soup. The infected cut is leaking now. Yellow pus oozes slowly through the bandage. You know what that means. You gather what strength you have left and drag yourself to the surgeon again. He unwraps the wound, makes a thoughtful grunt, then pulls out a hot iron. No, you whisper. Yes, he replies. He doesn't even tie you down, just shoves a hunk of leather in your mouth and says, "Bite." Then he cauterizes it. The pain is unlike anything you've ever known. It's heat, horror, lightning, and betrayal all at once. Your vision whites out. Your legs kick involuntarily. You scream into the leather, into the sky, into the universe. When it's done, you collapse. Later, the surgeon says you'll live. Maybe. He grins, which is not comforting. You spend the next day drifting in and out of consciousness. The fever breaks, then returns, then breaks again. Your hand looks like roast meat, but the swelling has slowed. You're not dead. Yet. You count that as a win. By the third day, you're upright again, wobbly, weak, but upright. The surgeon slaps you on the back and says, "See? You're tougher than you look." You want to hug him and punch him at the same time. You go back to work, left hand limp, right arm doing double duty. The crew doesn't tease you. They've seen worse. They've been worse. You live with the scar and the knowledge that one bad splinter almost ended your story. Land ho! You bolt upright, heart racing, blinking in disbelief. Did you dream that? Was it another fever hallucination? You scramble up the ladder onto the deck, joints creaking, hand still wrapped in yesterday's medieval barbecue sauce bandage. Around you, crew members are pressing toward the bow, squinting into the pale morning light. You follow their gaze. There, just at the edge of the horizon, something. A smudge of color. Maybe trees. Maybe rocks. Maybe your salvation. But no one celebrates. Not really. You've heard this cry before. False alarms are common. Clouds can look like mountains, waves like shorelines. Your brain, desperate for a horizon that doesn't move, fills in details that aren't there. And even if it is land, that doesn't mean you're anywhere near arriving. The cook shrugs and goes back to boiling fish bones. Because the truth is this: you're still weeks away, possibly months. Time on a medieval ship stretches, distorts, lies. The calendar is a joke. There's no reliable way to measure where you are or how far you've come. Your days blur together into a fog of salt, sweat, hunger, and rope burns. You overhear the captain muttering to himself, flipping through a chart that looks more like a napkin doodle. Medieval navigation isn't what you hoped for. No GPS. No compass you can trust. Just a sun, some stars, and a guy named Willem who claims to feel the direction in his bones. Spoiler: Willem has gotten you lost before. Historians still argue how navigationally competent most medieval sailors actually were. Some captains had impressive sea knowledge. Others winged it with confidence and sheer vibes. You, unfortunately, are on a vibes vessel. The days grow longer. The sun bakes your already scorched skin. Your infected hand oozes less, so that's something. But your strength is gone. You do half jobs now. Half lift a bucket, half tie a knot, half finish a sentence before forgetting what you were saying. One morning, you wake up and find your shoes don't fit. Your feet are swollen. Your gums are bleeding again. You try to rinse your mouth with grog. It stings. You do it anyway. Somewhere below deck, a rat squeals. Two sailors chase it with sticks. Not for fun. For meat. Jacques is not looking safe anymore. There's no real food left. The salt pork is blue. The biscuits are fossilized. Someone tried to boil the leather of a belt yesterday. You wish that were a joke. You dream of fruit. You dream of crunch, of freshness. You would trade your last coin for a carrot. Maybe even your last molar. One afternoon, the ship stops moving. Dead calm. The sails hang limp. The water is still as glass. No wind. No sound. Just a creaking hull and the slow realization that you're not going anywhere. It lasts for 4 days. 4 days of roasting heat, dead air, no progress. Tempers fray. Someone gets punched over a dice game that isn't even real. You watch a man throw a boot at the sky. You start talking to your blanket. Peter spends an entire morning pretending to be the captain, issuing fake orders in a squeaky voice. No one stops him. The cook invents a new dish called shiploaf. It's just mold scraped off a barrel and mashed into shape. You eat it. You cry a little. On the 5th day, a breeze returns. The sails billow. The ship groans back to life. And so does hope. Someone spots birds. Real living birds, not the ones you imagined flying upside down in your fever dreams. Birds mean land is near. Maybe this time, it's true. Maybe you'll finally walk on solid ground. Feel it under your feet. Kiss the dirt. Collapse in a dramatic heap of surviving flesh and questionable hygiene. But until that shoreline actually appears, you keep working. Keep hauling. Keep hoping. And each night, you count the stars. Like breadcrumbs scattered by a sky that might still be merciful. The sky turns black faster than usual. Not the soft fade of dusk or the slow stretch of twilight, but a sudden, ominous dark, as if someone threw a blanket over the sun and whispered, "Let's see what they're really made of." The wind returns, but not the kind that fills sails with song and motion. This wind screams. It snatches your breath, whips your hair into your eyes, and flattens the few remaining dry rags fluttering above deck. Someone shouts, "Storm!" and the scramble begins. You reach for a rope, but your bandaged hand protests. Too bad. The sea doesn't accept medical exemptions. The sails have to come down. Fast. The mast groans. The rigging trembles. You climb again, dizzy and weak, this time without hope of grace. The rain pelts your face like thrown gravel. Lightning forks the sky in furious flashes, each burst turning the ocean silver for half a second, then black again. Below, the ship is tossed like a child's toy. Each wave feels like a mountain rearing up to slap you down. You tighten your grip, your soaked shirt slapping against your ribs, eyes wide, limbs aching. Then the thunder hits. Not the distant rumble of cozy bedtime storms. This is cannon blast thunder. It rattles your bones and makes you wonder if the ship itself might be screaming. Worse, some sailors believe this is divine punishment. You hear prayers muttered between clenched teeth. Some speak to saints, others to ancestors, and one man throws his boots overboard. He's convinced it will please the sea. Historians still debate whether such rituals were rooted in superstition or sheer terror, but you don't care. You briefly consider sacrificing Jacques the rat. Someone beats you to it. Jacques is gone. Then come the sharks. No, really. As the waves rise, the ocean surface becomes clearer, and there they are. Dark shapes circling, occasionally breaching like shadows with teeth. Maybe they're following debris. Maybe they're just curious. But someone falls overboard, and you see the water turn red before the body even surfaces. The crew says nothing. You stare, stunned. Salt stinging your eyes, mouth open, heart pounding. The rain is relentless. The deck floods ankle deep. A barrel breaks free and slams into a man's legs. He drops with a scream. You and another sailor drag him to safety. His shin bent in a way shins should never bend. No one has time to splint it. You hear a snapping sound. The mizzenmast. The top portion cracks like dry wood and crashes down in a tangled, deadly mess of ropes and splinters. It crushes part of the galley. The cook screams something unintelligible and hurls a ladle at the storm. You actually admire the commitment. The captain, soaked and furious, bellows commands you don't understand. Most of the crew doesn't either. Everyone is simply reacting. Ducking, pulling, praying, hauling, shouting. The storm owns the moment. You're just along for the nightmare. And then, hail. Because of course. Small at first, then bigger. Stones the size of marbles hammer down. You shield your face. One hits your shoulder, another clips your ear. The sky laughs. You slip. Your feet go out from under you. You crash to the deck, roll once, and nearly slide into the rail. Someone catches your arm and yanks you upright. It's the carpenter. He grins like a man who's seen worse. This is nothing, he says. I once lost 2 ships in a week. You're about to ask how that's even possible when another wave smashes over the side, soaking you both. He just laughs harder. Eventually, impossibly, the storm begins to fade. The wind drops. The rain eases into a sulk. The sky, exhausted, lightens to a wet gray. The sea no longer tries to murder you, just jostles you around a bit, like a bully who's run out of energy. You're soaked, shaking, bruised. But you're still here. The deck is a battlefield. Splintered wood, scattered tools. One chicken somehow perched unharmed on the wheel. You don't ask. The cook limps by, holding what's left of a pot, muttering, "She took my stew." Again. Peter stumbles up beside you, eyes wild. Did you see the lightning hit the water? It made a shape. Like a face. You nod slowly. Sure it did. You look out over the rail. The sharks are gone. The sea is quiet. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you realize you didn't just survive a storm. You survived their storm. One that's claimed better sailors, stronger men. You find a dryish spot, sit down, and press your forehead to your knees. You want to cry, laugh, sleep, eat, and possibly retire. But most of all, you want to get off this ship. The coastline finally appears on the horizon. Not a mirage this time. Not a hopeful smudge of cloud, but land. Actual, solid, blessed land. You barely react. Not because you're ungrateful, but because you're so utterly, profoundly empty. You stare at it the way someone stares at a warm meal in a dream. Uncertain, detached, afraid that blinking will make it vanish. The crew begins moving with a sluggish energy, a bizarre mix of urgency and exhaustion. Sails are trimmed, ropes coiled, anchors prepared. Everyone knows the routine, even if their bodies are half shadows of who they were weeks ago. You shuffle toward the bow with the others, gripping the railing with your scarred, half-healed hand. The wood feels like stone under your fingers. Your skin cracks around your knuckles. You don't even flinch anymore. Closer and closer you drift. You can see trees now, hills, smoke rising from distant chimneys. Civilization. Some of the crew starts to cheer, weakly. Others just stare, faces unreadable. A few mutter prayers, not out of reverence but relief. Then comes the ritual. Before entering harbor, the ship must be cleaned, at least cosmetically. It's bad form to roll into port looking like a plague barge. Buckets of seawater are hauled. Salt-stiff rags scrub the deck. You're handed one. You do your part, moving like a corpse who forgot how to care. The captain walks the deck, barking orders out of habit. He seems less monstrous now, just tired, like the rest of you. Eventually, the anchor drops. The ship rocks gently, slowing, settling into place. A longboat is lowered for cargo and officers. You, a humble green hand, won't touch land for hours, maybe longer. First, supplies are offloaded. The ship's papers inspected, dues paid, bribes negotiated. You wait. The air smells different here. Less salt, more dirt, more life. You close your eyes and imagine stepping on land, bare feet sinking into soil. No swaying, no creaking, just stillness. The thought is intoxicating. Around you, sailors pack up their few possessions. Some carry satchels, others clutch nothing but memories. A few look back at the ship as if they might miss it. You do not. You think about your journey, the moldy biscuits, the tooth that betrayed you, the fever that nearly claimed your name, the toilet plank, the storm, the mutiny that almost sparked and might still, the plank with the rat prints, the sharks, the sky that cracked open with lightning while your hand turned into a horror movie prop. And still, you made it. Barely. Your body is thinner, your mind stretched. But something deep in your bones hums with quiet defiance. The longboat returns. It's your turn. You climb down with the others, your limbs awkward and trembling from weeks of malnutrition and rocking decks. You sit in the boat and feel it lower, ropes creaking. The final stretch. The row to shore takes longer than it should. Every stroke feels like lifting the sea itself. The oars groan. The rowers groan louder. Then, crunch. Sand beneath wood. You step out, boots squishing, legs unsure. The world doesn't move. You stand. Solid earth. And for a moment, you don't smile. You don't speak. You just breathe. The sky stretches above. The wind rustles trees. Somewhere nearby, a dog barks. And you? You start walking. No destination. No orders. No rigging. Just forward. Each step is a rebellion. You survived. Not as you were, but as you are now. Scarred. Burned. Limping. Alive. And now the sea fades behind you. Its endless waves, its roaring storms, the creaking deck and foul air. All just distant echoes as you walk inland, leaving the ship, the rats, and the plank that shall not be named far behind. Your feet sink slightly into soft earth. The breeze here smells like pine and smoke. There are birds, people, a quiet that doesn't threaten. a calm that doesn't come with seasickness. You made it through what most modern people wouldn't survive a day of. The hunger, the thirst, the fear, the boredom so heavy it nearly cracked your spirit, the endless noise, the oppressive silence, the dull ache that settled in your bones and refused to leave. And now, stillness. No rigging to climb, no rope to coil, no shouts, no bells. Just the hush of a world that doesn't pitch or sway. As you sit down on actual ground, you let your eyes close. Your body relaxes. The scent of warm soil and distant fire drifts around you. Your heartbeat slows. The tension in your shoulders releases, just a little. You are not the same as when you left. But you're still here, still breathing, still strong. The stars begin to emerge, one by one. Slowly, softly. You lie back in the grass. It doesn't move. And for the first time in weeks, you don't have to hold on to anything. You can just let go. Let your mind drift. Let the sea fall silent. And let yourself fall asleep.